Welcome, everybody, to the A Little Less Fear podcast. I'm your producer and host of the show, Dr. Lino Martinez. This is your motivational podcast of people's incredible journeys. Oh, yeah, let's do this. Welcome back, everybody. Today's guest is Dr. Cristine Hull, a psychologist and doctor of natural medicine who specializes in holistic approaches to mental health and well-being. She is the founder of internationally accredited Zero Point Meridian Technique, an evidence-informed energy psychology method that integrates brain chemistry, thought patterns, emotions, and energy. Through her teaching, certifications, and innovative frequency formulas, she's helping practitioners and clients explore a more comprehensive approach to healing. Let's welcome Dr. Cristine Hull to the show. Hello, Cristine.
Thank you.
Good to see you.
So good to be here.
And you're in Utah, correct?
I am. Yep. Northern Utah. Yep.
Well, welcome to the show. I'm in California. People tuning into the first time. Here we are, California meets Utah. So I'm really excited about this, Cristine. I'm just really blown away by this topic because this is my bread and butter. This is the stuff that lights me up. And if it lights you up, it lights you up. But I'm really interested to know why you left private practice on a mission of supporting more complete evolution. What does that mean?
Well, what that means is that I've been through multiple careers. So my first career was in substance abuse, and it was a powerful way to understand really holistic solutions. There's not really a cure for alcoholism, right? And so, I learned from that there's a spiritual solution. And especially even if there's not a physical, but I think it should be the go-to. So I then went and got a master's degree in psychology. I worked in school psychologist. And I'll tell, a quick story of like one of my students who she had an IEP for emotional behavioral disorder. And at that same time, it was about 2004, I had just trained in emotional freedom technique, which, if you're familiar with Gary Craig, got this out to the world. I think his original career was a pastor. He wasn't a psychologist,
Oh, wow. I didn't know that.
He wanted to see the world have a solution. And, so that's a tapping technique. Nobody knew about it in 2004. It's grown and grown since then. So it's more familiar to people.
Has, yeah.
But, so this sixth grader was having these meltdowns. Like she was going totally limbic. She couldn't pull herself back together and having to be sent home like sometimes twice a week and was missing a lot of school. So in her IEP, it was, there was a provision that the school psychologist or, there would be a treatment plan or a education plan that helped her manage her emotions and get back to class. It just wasn't something that people could figure out how to do. So
yeah, or memorize, right? Because you got to memorize it. It's almost a memory.
Oh, it was she was just going right into that limbic brain reaction. And so I sat down with her the first time it happened when I was there at the school, and I saw it, for myself. She was just kind of coming undone and inconsolable. And I said, "Hey, try this with me." And I started the tapping, and she followed along. And within 15 minutes, she was smiling. Her whole essence changed. Her emotional state was transformed. It was so cool to see. And she went back to class for the first time to document on the, IEP that we have a solution. We're getting her, we're accomplishing this goal. And the downside of that, it was amazing. I was so grateful. The problem is that EFT wasn't something that was allowed in the educational system. It wasn't, an evidence-based technique that was, and I couldn't really teach the teachers how to do it. And anyway,
they weren't going to allow for it, right?
They didn't allow for it. And so I still worked with this in the schools for a little while past that, but I realized I needed to get into private practice and have some autonomy to be able to bring these solutions to people. So that was kind of my first, kind of leaving a career in order to do what I'm here to do kind of thing. So, so that worked well. For several years, I was in private practice. I was doing I called myself an integrative mental health expert. I was doing integrative mental health. So, if you understand how EFT works, it's working with the meridians. So that's like traditional Chinese medicine. There's an acknowledgement of like, we have these meridians, these pathways, and acupuncture acknowledges that. And so it's an integrative approach in the psychology realm. So I was doing that and other fun things with my clients. And it got to where the problem is that the healthcare system changed in kind of the mid, 2015 to 2020. What I saw is that everyone started to have health insurance because of, the different laws that went into healthcare, and everyone had mental health insurance, but that didn't mean that it was working. So it ended up becoming a game with healthcare systems. And I spent more and more of my time and energy just navigating insurance. It was, I was constantly having to expend resources to just deal with billing and follow up on billing. And it just ended up not being worth the game for me. And
you're doing more back office stuff than hands-on healing.
Yeah. And so I was able to do it to an extent, but what I realized is I'm still also one person dealing with one client at a time. And I kind of put it out there. It was in a group. I did some kind of interactive spiritual groups in my practice. And we studied A Course in Miracles. It was one of the groups that we did, and we used meditation. And I remember as we were looking at that, and I remember studying and realizing that faith was really the leader, not insurance. And, and I remember the day I spoke, I'm like, I'm prepared to do whatever it takes to bring the real solutions to people. And within a year of that, I closed my doors. And it was just, I followed that path.
Dr. Holt, sorry to interrupt you. When you said that you're prepared to do whatever it takes, is this something that you said to yourself, or that you said?
I spoke it to the whole room full of people.
Oh, okay, okay.
Yeah. And
you
so
declared
I remember it because it kind of reflected that back. I was like, well, what does that mean? Like,
Yeah.
And, and they held me to it kind of. It was kind of like, well, we're curious to see what that looks like. So I got my PhD in natural medicine, my doctorate from Quantum University in 2020. And that was, it was right before that I basically realized what I learned from that background and what I was doing in my practice, they didn't coincide. They didn't align anymore. And it was time to change paths. So I'm now in my fourth career. So
that's amazing. That is an absolute evolution, as you said here, that you wanted something more supportive of a complete evolution. And so something I was looking at your website, and you're talking about that the most effective solutions to healing mental health conditions are on a holistic model. Is this something that you found out when you went to the Quantum University, or is this something that you already had in mind and you wanted to go down that avenue a little bit?
That started way back in my substance abuse career.
Oh,
so I'm also a recovering addict.
Great.
And what I learned and talk about, fear. Oh my gosh. I started having anxiety at probably when I started school, I would say, first grade. And it was incapacitating at times. Like it looked like social anxiety, shyness, but what was going on inside of me, I learned in my school psychology background, there's internalizers and externalizers. So the internalizers are going through inner hell, and it's getting in the way of, how they learn, how they, socialize, how they grow. And the externalizers are giving hell. They're the ones that the teachers don't know what to do with, and, are bullying other kids, or, acting up in class, the ADHD kids, whatever. And so that was my story. I was a total internalizer, and nobody knew what I was going through. And so by the time I reached junior high, it was so incapacitating. The anxiety just kept getting worse, I think, to some extent. Of course, a lot of people have anxiety in junior high. It's the worst time in life, I think, for a lot of people.
Right. Of course. Right.
But it was where I fell off the edge. And I actually started into substance use because there was nothing else. I was like, I didn't know what else to do. And what was interesting about that is that my anger started to come out. And I have a whole story. I have actually developed a model of, I call them the adrenaline twins. And so if you understand your adrenals, you've got adrenaline pumping in fear, flight, and with anger, which is your fight, right? Fight or flight. So I actually call them the adrenaline twins, and I've created a nice little caricature of them. One's has a T-shirt on that says fear, and the other one has a T-shirt on that says anger. And you can imagine how they have different facial expressions for sure. And I was that fear twin up until I hit a wall and I started becoming an externalizer. I actually got in trouble in school after that. I had, I got fights. It was just a total, like, my parents were so confused, like, what happened? I completely changed personalities. But this is what's interesting. Later, I started to use that as an actual tool for people who were paralyzed by fear, because your power is actually in your anger. And you talk about frequency model. If you look at the lowest frequency emotions on Dr. Hawkins' map of consciousness,
anger
at the bottom, right? You got grief and fear. The highest of the negative emotions is anger. It's actually a catalyst towards courage, which gets you over the top.
Wow, that's amazing.
Yeah.
So anger is a catalyst to courage. That makes sense.
Yeah, isn't that interesting?
Yeah, and actually, as you say that, it kind of reminds me of some, like, I'm just gonna say Star Wars. I don't know if you're a fan, but it makes me think of like people going to the dark side or whatever, or even changing. It just seems like they go from they just go from this anger to this courageous, like, badass, right? But I mean, you can be courageous in a good way, in a harmful way, or courageous in a helpful way.
Yeah. And I had to kind of go that ass dark side for a while. And, and then as soon as I was ready to kind of come back to, and change my ways, I had a spiritual awakening. So I love that you talk about, spirituality as a psychologist. Like, that's rare.
It is rare, but I really do feel that there is an evolution, just as the evolution that you went through, that's starting to emerge. And I see it with my students. I see it with people that I talk to, even on the podcast. And I feel that the more that people open up their heart to what's already innate and our birthright, and acknowledging that we are, a human soul, spirit having a spirit having a human experience,
Yes.
then we're able to really open up the channels to healing, because we're meant to be well. We're meant to be thriving. We're not meant to be in pain. We're not meant to be suffering.
Yeah, beautiful. I love it. Yeah, as we were talking earlier, I appreciated your sharing about Buddhism. So an interesting story is I was in private practice, and I had my clients ended up being my catalysts in a lot of ways to things. I got in my comfort zone a few times, and often it was my clients that would just kind of nudge me and remind me, hey, did you check this out? Because I give them assignments, but they'd also give me assignments.
That's awesome.
And I had one that just insisted I needed to check out Tara Brach, a psychologist who, I guess, I didn't know that it was Buddhism, and I wouldn't have gone there. I wouldn't have stepped through that door. And I was, listening to her, just mindfulness, I thought, until she mentioned Buddhism. I'm like, oh, I've been hooked. And I'm in, because whatever, she'd been sharing things. I was like, this is, my soul just felt the truth of it and the freedom of it and the peace of it. And so that's a solution to fear, big time. I can tell you about my meetings with a former Buddhist monk.
Oh my goodness. Yes, please tell us. Tell us.
So I let that door open a little with Tara Brach. And then, so I'm in recovery. I had, at the time, probably 20 some years recovering. I'd had a sponsor that I worked with, at year 10. And I hadn't seen her in like another 10 years had gone by. And so, so this had gone on, she'd been, I didn't know where, for 10 years. And I ran into her on a walk. And so we were walking opposite directions. So we had this like 5-minute conversation that changed my life. And she told me that she had been following Thich Nhat Hanh. And I knew that. I'd heard of Thich Nhat Hanh, a father of mindfulness. And so I was like, well, that's interesting. And she's like, she was involved in our local Buddha Sangha. And I'm like, well, I couldn't see myself doing that. That's like a religion, so to speak. But then she says, and there's a monk in my basement. And I am now I've been working on the book for a while. It will be released at some point. There's a monk in my basement. It's not a great title. So I'm like, well, that's interesting. And so a former Buddhist monk had come, he was touring. He had a degree in business. Nitya Shanti is his name. And he's got like an MBA from India. And he was in like the full-on monastery with the red, is it like robes, right?
Yes.
And the shaved head, and he would walk barefoot into the village with his empty bowl, as the villagers would come down the line of monks and fill the bowls with food. And that's how they would eat. And then they would go back to their monastery in silence. And so he did it for years. And then he had an awareness that he was meant to do more teaching. He was meant to teach the world these principles, and his background in business led him to he's like the keynote for like business conferences. I mean, it's like he's reaching the people that really need this, that can influence, that influence a lot of people. But he ended up in Little Logan, Utah, and was, spoken at the Sangha, and his visa had some issues, and he had to wait until he resolved those issues with his visa. And so he was there for like several months unexpectedly. So that's why he was living in the basement of my former sponsor's home. And so I said, okay, I need to meet with this person. I just felt it. And I remember
you felt like a magnetic pull to know more about his teachings, or to learn more about his story?
Well, to know more. Whatever that
know more,
like.
whatever that meant. You just needed to know more.
I didn't know what it meant. And so I just knew I was meant to, that was my next level kind of. And it's like a whole nother frequency.
Oh yeah.
That I experienced. Yeah. And I remember standing at her door and knowing like when I walked through that door, it's going to change me. And it was like, I didn't know how it would change me. So it was very intimidating. I remember the first question, he asked me as we started to work together in that basement is, what are you most afraid of?
What a great question.
Yeah, that was a big question.
What a great question.
What is your deepest fear? Okay, so tie it in with a little less fear. Like,
right?
He took it all on, like right there in that moment. So I actually kind of knew what that was. It was interesting. It was that I would cease to exist. That was my deepest fear.
Wow, that's a pretty, that is a very deep fear.
It is something.
So what did he say?
It is something.
Yeah.
So, and I had anxiety just sharing it. It was like this, and he didn't even miss a beat. And his response to it was, well, if you cease to exist, there's no you to be afraid of anything. I was like, oh yeah, that's really interesting. So I was afraid of zero. Okay. Now, if you know the name of my technique, that is an interesting thing to note.
Oh, wow.
So I was afraid of zero, and I had not embraced the power of zero at that point in time. And
that is so powerful. Holy moly. Wow.
That was big.
That's huge. So what happened after that?
The nothingness.
Yes.
The nothingness scared me. It was like my ego mind did not want to cease to exist. It liked its power, its control, and it created that fear. It ran that scenario for me. And so really what I was afraid of was the ego's fear that it would be found out and excused from, from my experience. Right. And so that was really kind of where I started my process of uncovering my ego and seeing how it created the suffering, the fear, that, the whole story, victimization, the whole pile. And it was found out after that. Yeah. And I used a lot of the principles of Buddhism to really find a deep, complete peace.
I love that. I mean, that sounds like similar to my journey, right?
Yeah.
It's really beautiful. It's really incredible. I'm curious to know a little bit more. So once you found out what you were afraid of, which was an excellent question, you were then able to unravel and explore the other things that were in alignment with that energy that had identified you, and you were able to then raise yourself up and the reason why I'm bringing this up is because I would love to talk about the frequency formulas that you are
Oh,
incredible.
yes.
So I'm just wondering if this is what brought you to your frequency formula.
Well, so this is interesting. So the frequency formulas are actually a product. They're actually a thing. And it was right around the same time. So I remember I was actually doing a retreat for the month. I was like, after
Really?
we'd worked together for
Wow.
6, 8 months, I was like, I just want to bring people to you. And we set it up in Bear Lake. It's a beautiful area. And if you want to go somewhere, that's
Oh,
it.
I'd love
So,
to.
and, I had this retreat all set up, um, and so two things happened at that retreat. One is that I got a phone call going inside the house. I remember, like, it was weird timing, from somebody who said, I think you should really invest in a biofeedback machine. And so I'm like, well, whatever that is, that sounds interesting. To make a long story short, I ended up buying a biofeedback machine after this and learning more about the technology of frequencies and how frequencies can be
Okay,
used
wow.
to
Mhm.
influence healing. So that became part of my practice, definitely an integrative, health and mental health solution. And then the other thing is that I was having no longer, it wasn't really anxiety attacks. I was having allergic reactions. So during this time period, I was working with a monk. It had happened, here and there. And one of them forced me to have to meditate because it was like telling me you've got to change your ways. Because I would go into these, like anaphylactic shock. And I actually was out for like one time, 3 hours. I was unconscious after this.
Wow.
And I went to zero. Okay. So talk about, I'd already worked with the monk. I already understood
Mhm.
zero scares me, but I'm willing to embrace that. Well, guess what? I spent 3 hours there.
Mhm.
And I couldn't, it wasn't like I was hanging on the ceiling. It wasn't a near death thing. It was like I didn't exist.
Mhm.
And I couldn't find my way back. And so once I did, I was told, you're running away from meditation and you've got to embrace it,
Mhm.
because that was my fear. Like when silence happened, it was
Yeah.
uncomfortable. Right. And so I learned, well, you can take it in doses or you can get it, pounding you on the head. So just
So
do
you were
it.
able to control the anaphylaxis?
Well, I wasn't. But I'll tell you how. So I was actually at this retreat months later after that, had happened. And my diet had been thrown off with vegan because, a lot of Buddhists are vegan, and
Right.
I'm allergic to a lot of grains. And so I was hungry and I ate things I shouldn't have. And I went into another, anaphylactic shock with, I started, and the experience is like my head would feel like it was going to explode. It would be red. I'd be sweating. I'd be, my heart rate was going really fast and my fingers were swelling. And, it was just like,
Mhm.
head pounding out of my head. And, and I had somebody come up to me. Her name was Lena, I think. And she came up to me and she's like, are you okay? Would you mind if I just kind of put my hand on you? And I like, whatever you want to do, fine. Because I knew I was about to pass out. And she just set her hand on me and it took about a minute. And I started to feel the pressure of my head go down, my swelling go down, and my heart rate slow down. And I could breathe better.
Mhm.
And I was like, what is going on? And after about 3 minutes, it was like I was okay, which was weird because that had never happened again. So I went back to the group and they were all just like, oh, you look so good. You look so refreshed. Like, what are you doing?
Yeah.
And I was like, I don't know what it was, but and identified her as my source of this. And she's like, would you like to know what I did? Well, I assumed she was a healer or something. And she says, no, I did quantum entrainment. So quantum entrainment is a specific style of meditation, I would say, through Frank Kinslow. Dr. Frank Kinslow is I guess, receiver of this.
What did you say? Quantum
entrainment.
Entrainment.
So he wrote a book called The Secret of Instant Healing. And he has, used this to actually heal, just like Buddhism and the practice of meditation and the silence and there is something in the field of consciousness that is doing the healing. So Dr. Kinslow, in his book, I love how he lays this all out. He explains it as a quantum thing. So you've got the physical matter of a chair, and he shows this on page. I just love it. And he's got the molecular structure of the chair, and he's got the atomic, symbols. And then he's got the wave and the subatomic particles, I guess, and then the wave, right? And then he identifies the 0 point field. Well, the 0 point field is what I started to find as this like nothingness. It's like the vacuum where all the energy's gone, including fear, but everything's gone, And then he explains, and then you keep going. And then you get to the unified field, which in, physics or quantum physics, they're still figuring out what that is. But he's calling it consciousness.
Universal
so unification, if you think about that, is everything. So how Buddhist is that? You go from the nothing to the everything.
Yes.
They're like right next to each other.
They really are.
Yeah.
Because it's interesting even saying it that way, because it's like they mirror each other almost too at the same time. All nothingness is everything.
They're like the yin and yang, or there's something so complementary that, it's like the darkness and the light. It's, it's just they coexist as this wholeness. Like that's all there is. And so that's, really what was healing me was consciousness. It was like consciousness medicine. And that was right before I found Quantum University. So all this was going on. So back to the biofeedback. So after all of this and working with the monk, and I was like, okay, so now what? And I realized the power of biofeedback to support healing. And these formulas also came into my life around the same time. And the formulas are actually partly created through a biofeedback.
I saw some of the formulas on your Instagram.
Oh, have you seen them on there? Yeah. And so they use intention and information, and that's really kind of what is in there. It's like a library of information in each of those formulas.
But what's in the actual formula, though?
Well, if you read the label, it is, let me read it to you. Officially, structured water, trace minerals, double helix water, which is an interesting vehicle, and proprietary frequency technology. So if you look at biofeedback, they usually have a plate. Okay. So there's this little box with a little metal plate on it, and you could set something on there. And so in my system, like if you're allergic to something, you can import that, like dog hair. You can stick some dog hair on that plate, and it'll connect with that. It'll take the information, the dog hair, and then it'll work with the frequencies and generate, and then you can replace and put, a bottle of distilled water on it and corrections. And the idea is then you can then take that formula, that frequency that's been inputted into the distilled water, and it's kind of like a homeopathy. It's like it corrects your allergy to the dog hair, because they've just corrected it with this frequency, right? Sure. So it's kind of that same concept, but with the way that these frequencies work with the formulas, there's 16 of them, and they're all designed for different types of issues. So one of them is, actually one of them is, well, I'll tell you this one because this is a little easier to comprehend. Spine line. So that works with a lot of things, structurally, that are thrown off, like, if it's my pelvis was out of alignment, and it just created, all the issues from that,
Sure.
so I had backaches, and I, you know, needed yoga. I was one of my clients got me to do yoga, so that was good. But I would go to a massage therapist every month, and she'd have to correct that every time, um, and then I got the formula for the spine, and it started making the whole right side of my body tingle. And I went to the developer of them and told, I was like, why is it doing this? He's like, oh, take it every hour. It's just trying to correct something. And so I took it until the tingling stopped. And then when I went back to my massage therapist, she's like, what'd you do? I don't have to correct you. Like, and I haven't had to have it corrected ever since, So you only take them for like a couple weeks. And so the idea is they're designed to create those corrections in your morphogenetic field, in your information fields, and all the way into the body, and it'll attract different things and create different solutions. I used a lot. There's one for depression that I used a lot with my clients. And it was really interesting. Each one of them would have a different experience. They'd come back and say, oh, well, I got on the right med. Or they'd come back and say, well, now I can handle this. Or, for me, it attracted, it connected me to MTHFR, that methylated folate, that when people have that mutation, genetic mutation, that, it's really common. And there's a lot of people talking about that now, and knowing that we have to have the methylated folate for our bodies to absorb, or to methylate folate, which we need for all of our brain neurochemical balance. So it just depends on what you need, but it creates an alignment with the solution.
And these specific formulas, you said how many are there? 16?
There's 16. Yeah.
So there's 16 different formulas, and they're all specific. They could be specific to like a body ailment and an emotional ailment.
I do. Yes, I do more. I got a private label on them in 2020, and I kind of rebranded them towards the mental health side, because that was more my thing. I wasn't trying to correct fibromyalgia, for example, but when I have clients with chronic fatigue or something like that, I knew, oh, there's a formula for that. So yeah. But the one that's the most interesting is the one for the ego structure. There's actually a formula for that. Isn't that crazy?
That's interesting, because ego, how does that work?
Yeah, how's that work? So he developed it after, so the founder had a client come to him and say, I've used all your formulas. There was about 13 or 14 at the time. And they, like, I feel like a different person. But the thing that I haven't resolved is my victim mindset, my self-sabotage, and my pride. So can you make a formula for that? He's like, well, let's see. So I got to be one of the people to get one of his, his protocol formulas, as he was testing them out. And I remember I put it in my office drawer, and I could, like, every client that we came in, I was like, oh, they could benefit from that. Oh, they could benefit from that. Oh, it's not interesting. And I went home, and it was a rough year that year. I remember it was the worst Mother's Day ever, and the worst Valentine's Day ever before that. And then I had a birthday. It was the worst birthday ever. And later I had somebody say, oh, these are all you and your relationship, and this is your relationship to yourself on my birthday. But that morning I was like, well, what do I do? I mean, I was just like, I can't get through this day like this. And it was a Sunday, but I realized, oh, I've got that formula in my office drawer still. So I drove into my office and I got it, and I started taking it. And within a couple of weeks, I was actually studying Eckhart Tolle at the time. And I don't know if it was a New Earth or Power of Now or something. But he was talking about the pain body. And I realized when he was talking about the pain body, I'm like, I don't even know. I was like, where's my pain body? It was after I started taking that formula, I could observe my pain body. I could observe my thoughts. Until then, it was like I was that. That's all that, it was like I couldn't separate the me, the conscious me, from the ego. And it was that formula that did it.
And so the formula allowed you to become an observer.
The observer of the not me.
That's really amazing.
Isn't that amazing? Yeah.
It is. But these formulas, so they're only taking temporarily and then they
Mhm.
heal what needs to be healed or they
They
open up
align
what
it.
needs to be opened up.
Yeah. They shift the frequency. So they align your frequency with that, whatever that is. And you don't always know what it is until, if you use affirmations. So we actually have these affirmation cards that people, we encourage you to read while you're taking the formula, and the intentions. And then you line up that awareness more.
Well, that
And
makes sense
then, yeah.
because when you're taking it in liquid form, and it's already changed its frequency, you're also raising the frequency of your own chemical structure in your cells through these affirmations while you're drinking the water because healing happens in water, which is why a lot of it. That's actually something I do
Ah,
every morning. Yeah, you know what I do every morning when I wake up?
good.
I say positive affirmations in lemon water and then I drink it.
Oh, girl. Yeah. You can do
Yeah.
that. Yeah.
Yeah, so it's kind of like doing the same thing
Similar
except to the
idea.
next
Yeah.
level, right? Which is
But yeah,
incredible.
it's added, like a whole series of, probably hundreds, if not thousands of specific frequencies related to that issue through a biofeedback type technology. So,
Wow, that's
yeah.
amazing. That's amazing, Dr. Hull. I have another question here, and this is all still on the topic of frequency. You talk about how to heal your aura fast with frequency. Is this the same thing? Is this how you heal your
So there's
aura?
actually one specific formula called Vital Radiance that's what it
Oh,
does.
wow.
So it's designed, in fact, okay, so
Vital
I
radiant.
started finding wholesalers for this, and
Uh-huh.
one of them does live blood analysis. So she takes the blood, if someone comes in and can look at, like, you can see inflammation in it, you can see the stacking. I think they call it like a rouleau or something like that.
Mhm.
Stacking of cells. So they're like dehydrated, they're sticky,
Yeah.
and so she'll typically, that's not uncommon. She'll get that kind of a live blood analysis or reading from someone. So she had, she started using the formulas, and she specifically uses this vital radiance. So and she's repeated this multiple times, but she's had clients come in, she'll do the vital radiance and then follow it up with the thing that they need the most help with. Um, their adrenals, or, something, related to if they have fibromyalgia, that type of thing. And then she'll take the blood 15 minutes later, and you can see it's crazy. So the cells have now found their own little home, that you can see them individually. They're kind of lit up. The inflammation's gone, but it's it's so cool. So that's what we're seeing from, just that, adding that formula to other formulas, because the vital body it's really I guess it's part of your cells too. Think about it.
Oh, of course,
Even
yeah.
your cells have a vital body, which would make sense.
How does this compare, if I don't know if you know, but just curious, how does this compare to sound frequency, sound healing?
Oh, I love sound healing. I don't know how much research there is on sound healing, but I know that vibration definitely is part of
Mhm.
that. And, just allowing yourself to open up, I think,
Mhm.
to the healing. I would imagine it would almost look similar in
That's what
a,
I'm thinking. That's what I'm feeling
yeah,
from this, that they would be pretty similar because they're both working, chemically as well through chemical
yeah.
healing structures,
I mean, I would love it if we could do sound healing every day, but
right? I
that's a
know.
little tricky.
That would be
So, but
amazing.
yeah, I love a good sound bath, and oh my gosh,
Oh
yes,
yeah, definitely.
yoga, all that good stuff. And I think yoga is another one too, that
Yes.
I don't know how much they've done it, as far as like something like blood analysis with the yoga practice, but I know I'm different when I have my practice and meditation. Oh, I love what Joe Dispenza's doing with the power of, he uses sound in his
Yeah.
meditation as well, and in affirmation intention.
Oh
And
yeah,
he's
definitely.
showing some really cool stuff. And, you talked about are you at, which university are you at?
Well, I teach at the Chicago School of Psychology in LA.
Oh, okay. In LA. Okay. He's partnered with the University of California, San Diego, I believe.
Oh,
And
nice.
they're taking blood samples and all kinds of stuff like that, um, in his meditation retreats, to show the power of that. So I love it when there's science to back up, what we're
Always.
feeling is good for us. And it's just tricky because in the mental health fields, we haven't done as much of that. it's not as common to see like actual medical results from these.
I feel we're definitely going to start seeing a lot more of that, though. A lot
Oh, I
more.
hope so. Yeah, that would be awesome.
And something that you mentioned right now, in regards to yoga, what I would love our watchers and our listeners to know is that you don't have to do like 30 minutes, 1 hour yoga. Like I started doing yoga every day and I did it for 6 months straight, but I would do 20, 30 minutes a day for 6 months. And then if I missed a day, I'd have to double up because I had this thing in my mind where I wanted to try yoga every day. And then the holidays came and I wasn't able to do yoga every day. And then I started eating the stuff I wasn't supposed to during, Christmas time and the holidays. But then when I got back into yoga practice, I realized that all I needed was 5 to 10 minutes a day. And that's where I'm at now. And I feel just as good doing 5, 10 minutes a day than I did when I did 20, 30 minutes a day. So for those people that feel like, oh, yoga is not for me, there's yoga for beginners. You could do 5, 10 minutes. It doesn't have to be extensive. You're still realigning yourself with your energy. You're bringing yourself present, and you're bringing yourself self-love when you're doing that. You're grounding yourself and prepping yourself.
Nice. Yes. Thanks for sharing that. I love that. It's one of my biggest obstacles is I still don't like meditating alone. There's something about silence that one of the things I learned from quantum entrainment is that when you use intention in a group, it's so amplified. I mean, it's not just even additive, it's it's multiplied or exponential.
It is.
And so that's one of my favorite things and I'm more consistent because I have, I mentioned these, we study Course in Miracles and we use meditation together, but we apply that intention and bring that intention to each other. There's some fun research on the sender receiver effect. When you send intention to someone, it can actually change their biology, their field, which is so cool.
It sure does. Yeah.
So
I just told my students actually last class that to be careful of the thoughts that you put out there with people. If you're thinking negative about someone, they're going to receive that tenfold. So really think if someone brought you grief, you turn that into love and send them love instead. Because it's gonna change who they are and it's gonna change your interaction with them. And it's just there's all kinds of stuff happening in the invisible that's more powerful than the visible.
Yes. So yeah, sometimes you just got to schedule it. Like I get my yoga done because I show up in a class with other people. I get my meditating done because I show up in a class with other people. And that's nice because it's online. So I can do it on vacation.
Oh, that is nice, right?
During the holiday.
So Dr. Hull, tell us about the actual Point Meridian technique.
Oh, so 0 Point Meridian. Yes. So once I just realized the power of zero, there is some really amazing things that can happen when you clear all the energy out. Okay. And so I actually was taught this by a physical therapist initially. And he came into my office to do this because he'd learned these vibrational solutions to physical therapy. His name's Sherrick Peck, and he's developed Resemax. So this Resemax, it's kind of a technology of vibration that helps with healing. But one of the things he figured out is that when people have trauma, he couldn't add vibration to that trauma. He had to clear the trauma out first. He had to get it out of the way, and then the body could start healing. It's not interesting to think about, because if you're still carrying the emotional vibration of the trauma, your body's still going to react. It's still going to be like, no, we aren't safe. We're not going to change. So it's like he figured out he had to clear that trauma first, and then he could start healing the body. So I had him come to my office to show me how he did it. And he brought a medicine ball, like one of those big balls you lay over, or, he had the client lay over while they were exhaling. So that's what we did. So we had them, lay over the ball, take a deep breath, tune into the trauma frequency, and then start exhaling. And as they exhale with that pressure against their abdomen, the exhale would be more complete. So later I started doing this with pillows, so you take a pillow and you pressurize that solar plexus and the, abdomen, and just push out all the air. And there's something about that gets people to the zero. Wow. So that zero, it's like, you can feel it like a vacuum has taken all the energy out. And from there, you could start, it's like the parasympathetic nervous system is active. And once that's act, so you take, I talked about fight, flight, adrenaline twins, you got to get both the twins out.
Yeah.
It doesn't work with them there. And go into rest and digest. And then you can respond to physical therapy, or you can respond to EMDR, or you can respond to, other themes, but it's tied to basically ZPM is a version of EFT. So wrapping back around to emotional freedom technique and the tapping.
Mhm.
So it's like connecting both the complete release and the vacuum of the zero and the tapping points and the meridians.
So you combine both?
So we combine them into 0 Point Meridian.
Combine the EFT with the letting out of the trauma or stored energy that's within the gut.
Yeah, it's a breathing technique that resets the parasympathetic.
Wow, that's amazing.
Yeah, it's amazing.
And you've
It's really
seen some pretty good results?
really good. Okay, so I actually did my own little research study.
Mhm.
In my doctorate, I needed some baseline stuff and comparison treatment information. And so I had a practitioner, a therapist who did EMDR and brain spotting. And those are really amazing techniques for trauma. She was
Yes.
really seasoned and had a lot of success with clients. And so I had her use a scale of, pre and post session well-being for her clients. And what it showed is in this scale that there was a full standard deviation of improvement pre and post with brain spotting and EMDR.
Mhm.
And so that was good news. And, at least it gave us, in general, like, here's what treatment can do. Here's what therapy can do. So then later I was training practitioners, and one of the requirements is that practitioners would have at least 10 clients that they practice the technique with, and they'd get their pre and post results. So I could see, like, are we making a difference for the clients in a session? And so this is single session stuff. And literally the results were so compelling. I've been showing ever since, I started this 2 standard deviations of improvement on average
Amazing.
in a single session. Yeah. It's
That's
amazing.
really
And
amazing.
the scale looks at things like, how do you feel physically? How's your nervous system? How's your emotional state? How connected do you feel spiritually? How connected do you feel with people? Do you have some empathy? Do you feel like, you want to take care, how's your caretaking? And so it's a bunch of items that really show a picture of, how put together is somebody. And so that's what this is doing.
That's
It's
really amazing.
Yeah, it's taking them to zero and then it's putting them back together. So
Wow. Well, I want to go to zero and put myself back
yeah,
together. That's awesome.
it's
Do
good.
you try this stuff on yourself as well?
Oh, I use it a lot. Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. In fact, I was able to clear allergies. So, I mean, I mentioned like the severe allergies I had. And so I was actually told by someone, you can't just do it once. If you're trying to clear seasonal allergies, and I would have such, I couldn't even work some days because I
Mhm.
couldn't stop sneezing and I was so inflamed. And so the theory was there's probably 100 things you're allergic to. You're probably going to have to tap 100 times to clear
Wow.
every allergen. And I hadn't even heard that before. But I spent an entire month tapping multiple times a day, probably 5 times a day for 20 days.
Mhm.
And I probably did clear 100 allergens. And I no longer have seasonal allergies. It is amazing. Like sometimes I'll have to,
Wow.
like, there will be a certain month or I'll be in a certain location where, oh, I haven't cleared those. So I'll have to do it again. But
Wow, that's
yeah, it's
really
amazing.
amazing. That is amazing. That's incredible.
Yeah.
And also, talk about taking your power back and knowing that you have the ability to heal yourself.
Yes, we do. We have yes.
Yeah.
And a lot of it is in that our vital body. So the vital body includes those meridians that we tap on, the auric field, that's,
Mhm.
our layers of protection, and our chakras. So yeah.
Yes. I love that you mentioned that the vital body are the meridians and also the chakras.
Yes. And that's what I learned from Amit Goswami at Quantum University. So he explained it that way. And it was like so validating to be like, oh, I've been doing this with people. And now
you
so
actually
like
really
there's a
understand how
quantum
it's working.
doctor who says this is part of
Right.
healing. Yes.
Well, I want to be a quantum doctor. That's
I know, right?
amazing.
Yeah.
Jeez, that's incredible. So I wanted to share a poem that I wrote for you. I write poetry, dedicate them, and I do a meditation before every episode that I do, and feel into this energy. So here it goes. You ready for it?
I'm ready.
Great. This is for Dr. Cristine Hull. I didn't realize my body was calling until I noticed I was falling. In this falling, what was unfolding was a need to connect mind, body, soul, spirit, to align, to intercept, not to reject, only to connect. And when this alignment, and in this alignment, I realized I was always mine. And in this newfound vibration, there was no hesitation, for I had discovered my birthright. I discovered my destination.
Oh, that's beautiful.
Thank you.
I love it.
Thank
That
you.
I feel that. I can hear these are words I would use. Yes.
Oh, awesome. I'm so glad.
Yeah, that's amazing. I actually the word birthright, you don't hear that very often.
Right.
But yeah, I mean I developed a essential oil blend and it's called Divine Origin.
Ooh, I
And it
love that.
restores you to your birthright. It's kind of like,
What?
and it's the concept of all these things that you're saying. It's like we all, this is our calling to find
It is.
our true, our wholeness, our divine.
It really is our divine birthright. And so what's something you want our viewers or watchers and our listeners to know and to leave with?
Oh, wow. So many things. But maybe we'll leave with that's your divine birthright to be healed. It's, it's like, to be on a path of healing and to accept. And actually, this is kind of part of this too. Maybe we'll leave with this, is that sometimes you think, all right, God is going to heal me, or this is, as long as I stay on this path, it's going to turn out this way. And one of the things I found, I think through, my study of Buddhism and different things, is that sometimes you just get to accept what is. And there's power in that. And your divine birthright is to be free of suffering in any given moment.
Yeah.
And a lot of that is your own choice on how you live in that moment.
Wow, that's beautiful and beautifully said. So nice to connect with you.
Yes.
Thank you so much for sharing your incredible energy. I'm really looking forward to keeping in touch and asking more questions off air. I'm sure I'm gonna have a lot of questions. But where can our viewers? Oh, you also have a few books, right? You have a couple books?
Yeah, I have a couple books. So I talk a little bit about my experience with zero in the book Being at Zero. So that's a good one. It's also got a memoir and a fun little story of soulmate story in there.
Nice.
And then my book 10 Ways to Balance Your Brain Chemistry is it comes with a companion book, 4 Bodies, 4 Medicines. So as we're talking about the vital body, that's in 10 ways. And so there's the 10 ways to balance your brain chemistry include a holistic approach, which is physical and emotional, mental and spiritual.
And where can our viewers or watchers and listeners find your books and get a hold of you if they need to?
So they are on Amazon, but I would love to have people hop on my website at CristineHull.com. And there's no H in Cristine, so it makes it a little easier to find me and where I'm at, CristineHull.
Cristine Hull, everybody, thank you so much for sharing your loving energy. It was a pleasure getting to know you, and thank you for all your incredible wisdom that you shared with us today.
Thank you. It was a great interview. I appreciate it.
I appreciate you. Thank you. Welcome, everybody, to the A Little Less Fear podcast. I'm your producer and host of the show, Dr. Lino Martinez. This is your motivational podcast of people's incredible journeys. Oh yeah, let's do this.